Hi, I'm Britt.
And my name is Alissa.
And this is SkeleTales.
And this is the podcast where we strive to answer the age-old question of, is my dead grandma watching me?
Alissa, you know when you get a random shiver?
Oh, yeah.
Mike calls them a wicked shimmy. Well, I had one yesterday, and I have a theory. I've decided that it's just grandma trying to give you a hug.
Oh, okay.
So next time you get one of those,
a wicked shimmy,
just be like, hey, grandma.
Hey, grandma.
Love you too.
I don't know if I get those all that often. My lips just turn blue and I go hypothermic.
Well, maybe that's how your grandma's trying to hug you.
Yeah,
freeze you out.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't really get them all that often. The wicked shimmies. You know what? No, it's like if I think about eating kiwi, that'll do it.
Really?
Yeah.
Give me they do kind of feel a little like you're being possessed when it's just like your whole body is just.
No, that's true. That's true. I'm sure there's a biological explanation for that would ruin this. But let's say grandma. Great. Good idea, grandma. No,
that's right.
But I do think I came on here like when my office is so cold, my lips are purple. Like I've had these instances of just purple lips. I also have a very slow heartbeat. I don't know what grandma's doing, but she's got to knock it off because I might die. Okay, I'll take a wicked shimmy.
Pale with bright blue lips.
Yeah,
I think we do have I have a Zoom recording of you that one particular day when you were looking extra blue.
Yeah, I think grandma's just like, come with me, Alissa. Maybe I mean,
people do walk through the cold patches. So
I'm just
she's
living
just
in
right
one.
there, right there with you.
Oh my God, maybe I am surrounded by spirits and that's what's doing it. I'm kind of like a frog in a hot pot, but the opposite. Like I'm just slowly getting colder and colder until I freeze to death. Join the spirits.
And turn into a popsicle. Alissa, do we just tell stories of shimmies and popsicles?
No, Britt, we tell true tales of the strange, unusual, and paranormal.
That's right.
Hey, I have something strange and unusual that happened to me this week. Do you want to hear about it?
Always.
Okay, so I was sitting on the couch the other night and everyone else in my house was already in bed. And I'm sitting there and I'm eating my pasta. And then I hear the door to our deck trying to open, like someone turning the handle of a door. No. And I look over and there's a fucking raccoon trying to open the door with his little grubby raccoon paw on the handle, pulling it down. Which then led me to believe that this has worked before, that this raccoon has opened our fucking door. And I'm now wondering how many times I've had a raccoon walking around my house at night that I don't know about.
Grabbing a banana, maybe some crackers out of the cabinet. Oh my, I'm delighted by this idea of like, you've got a sneaky, what do they call them? Trash panda just roaming around your kitchen at night. Oh,
I'm not delighted by it. I am a little horrified. You would think that it would trash the place. Like there's not been evidence of like a raccoon rummaging.
Like crumbles on the counter in the morning.
Yeah. Or like raccoon shit. So not paranormal, but definitely a little strange and unusual. Not haunted. Thank God. Much prefer a raccoon than a person or a ghost though. So
for sure.
The alternatives were a lot scarier.
Not the worst case scenario. Speaking of haunted things, being in places.
Ooh, do you have a story?
I got a text from my friend Becca, friend of the podcast. She texted me and she said, hey, I'm in Seattle for work and I'm having a drink at Kell's bar. And she sends me a photo. And just to recap, we know Kell's bar. Alissa told this story from Spooky Seattle or Seattle Hauntings. It used to be a mortuary run by a man named Mr. Butterworth. And several of his clients / dead bodies came from Linda Hazard from Starvation Heights. Oh, I don't actually remember what the real name of her place was. But basically, starved bodies going to Butterworth Mortuary. Lots of people have seen activity there.
I mean, Starvation Heights was like what it was known as.
Yeah.
That was the name.
Woodland Heights. Anyway.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah.
I don't remember.
The real thing.
So after she texted me, I was like, go get the gossip from the bartender.
Yes.
You're there. Might as well. And so about an hour later, I get this email from Becca. Are you ready?
Becca, I am so ready.
OMG. I just got back from Kell's Irish pub in Seattle and I couldn't wait to type this. I'm in town by myself, so I went for a solo dinner. The waiter was pretty quick and not the chatty type, so I wasn't sure I was going to get any details, but I decided to move over to the bar and see what I could get from the bartender. Way to go, Becca. When he finally came around to me, I mentioned that I'd heard the place was haunted and asked if he'd had any experiences. He made a joke about 90% of the paranormal experiences he'd seen were because of drunk people. When I asked him about the other 10%, he laughed it off and said that he hadn't seen anything. So I was feeling like I might come away empty-handed. I started chatting to my neighbor at the bar who had an Irish accent. It turned out that he'd grown up in Ireland and moved to America about 19 years ago. I asked him what brought him here, and he said, "Oh, I have to do it in an Irish accent. Hi, an Irish accent. A beautiful woman." So sweet. We were talking, and another gentleman came up who had noticed the Irish accent.
Oh, wait a minute.
Also.
I thought, okay, hold on. Reset. I thought you were just trying to slide into that accent, and you had to say, "It's an Irish woman, a beautiful woman," was like your words.
Ireland,
like
Ireland.
Scrooge McDuck.
No, the Irishman, he says, a beautiful woman brought me to America.
Okay, now I got it. Sorry. Thought you were just warming up there.
Just random comments.
Yes.
We were talking and another gentleman came up who'd noticed the Irish accent. So beautifully done. Also because this other gentleman was from Belfast. It turned out that he was the owner of the bar.
Oh, wonderful.
His name is Patrick, and his family bought it back in 2005. As soon as I heard that, I asked him if he'd had any strange or unusual experiences there. He said, only really once. So here is the story. One night back in 2006, the pub was closed because it was Thanksgiving night. Two of Patrick's friends had met him there to get ready to go out somewhere. These two friends didn't know each other. The three of them were on the customer side of the bar, getting ready to head out, when one of the guys says, "Hey, are you open?" And Patrick says, "No." Oh, he's Irish too. "No, of course not." And the guy said, "Well, what's with the red-headed woman in the kitchen?" And that's when the other friend piped up and said, "Yeah, I was wondering about her too, the red-headed woman." So Patrick, thinking that maybe it was the previous landlord who was kind of nutty, went back into the kitchen to see who was there. When he got back there, everything was locked and no one was there. He also told about one of the janitors named Josiah, who saw a red-headed girl running around one night. He chased her up the stairs and ran right through her. After that, he wouldn't go upstairs anymore. Eek! So exciting. I hope you enjoyed the story. And then she sent a few pictures from the bar that night, which now come to think of it, I have not looked at to see if there's any orbs or
God, I knew you were gonna
shadowy
say it.
people or redheaded women sitting there looking transparent.
Oh, I love that, Becca. Thank you for sending that in. I love that there's one Irish dude in the bar and I just imagine him starting to talk and all these heads turn is that an Irish accent? You're like, oh,
an Irish bar.
And everyone just crowds around because the dude has an Irish accent, moths to a flame. But the fact that it was on Thanksgiving kind of plays into that whole Starvation Heights thing where it was all these starved
and food.
Yeah, and they're in the kitchen.
And she's in the kitchen
looking for food. They're hungry. They're it's Thanksgiving. There's got to be food here. That's a great story. I love it. I love feet on the street, heels on the street. There's some saying I'm butchering. Feet on the pavement, getting out there, getting into the trenches of the Irish bars and ghost stories.
Everyone take Becca as the beautiful example of what SkeleTales is all about.
Are we ready for my story?
I am so ready.
So I stumbled upon this story doing research for the 100th episode, looking up information for the Hotel Andra and going through old historic newspapers and just searching for the histories of the hauntings of the area. And this one stuck out to me. Crazy man tells of his battle with evil spirits. Like, would that fly now? I don't know if it would.
But they hooked me. I'm ready to hear it.
It was written on Monday, January 15th, 1894. And the titles just keep on going in these old tiny newspapers. Okay.
There's a longer title. Okay.
Yeah. No, the first main title that caught my eye, Weird Ghost Story. That was the first one. Weird Ghost Story. And then it's in subtitles. Crazy man tells of his battle with evil spirits alone in a haunted house.
Ooh.
The remarkable manuscripts found on Thomas Beer, the old printer, sent to Stella Coombe. Like 4 titles. Okay, so Stella Coombe, Insane Asylum. So Thomas Beer, an old man of distinguished parents who was committed to the insane asylum at Stella Coombe last Friday, has left a most remarkable ghost story written by himself a few weeks ago before his insanity took a violent turn. Beer is an Englishman, 50 years of age, and is said to have considerable property in British Columbia. He's a printer by trade, and although he has lived in Seattle for some time, very few of the craft are acquainted with him. He was always distant in his demeanor and lived by himself. For some weeks, he had been rooming quietly at the Merrimack House on 2nd Street, but Wednesday night, he awoke the other lodgers by his wild cries for help. He could see the figure of an old tottering woman whom had haunted him since his boyhood in England. She would appear at his bedside while he was asleep, and he could not shake himself free from the horrible spell the apparition produced. The lodgers at the Merrimack, fearing the old man would harm himself, notified the police, and he was locked up. Little attention was paid to Beer, although his case was a peculiar one. But since his confinement at Stella Coombe, a remarkable document has been found among his papers, and now that the old man is insane, reads like a message from the dead. Document which describes accurately the spirit of the old tottering woman that has been a nightmare to his deranged mind is written with pencil on common blank newspaper and reads as follows.
This is so good.
It goes, a haunted house. The narrative I am about to relate, I can't do a British accent. I'm just going to butcher this. British, I'm a little British boy named Thomas Beer. Okay. And this is my story about a haunted house.
Why? But he wrote it as a man.
I'm a little British man called Thomas Beer. And I wrote this story about a haunted house. The narrative, no. Already bad.
It's fine.
They don't pronounce R's. R's. The narrative I'm about to relate occurred 40 years ago when I was a boy and happened in a small born in Devonshire, England. I shall simply endeavor to relate what occurred without attempting to exaggerate, but simply put down what I believe to be fact, pure and simple. I shall enter my tale without further apology. My mother was a widow left with a family of 3. 2 boys and a girl. I was the eldest, aged 10 years. My brother was 7 and my sister was 4. When father died, he left the house we lived in and another house situated in another part of the town, and which we could not let owing to the prevailing opinion that the building was haunted. And so it remained untenable for many years. Broken panes of glass and other outward evidences showed that attention had not been paid on it. And naturally, on this account alone, it would have been hard to secure a tenant. This state of affairs continued for some years, and various and weird were the reports that reached my mother's ears relative to apparitions, strange noises, etc., that occurred nightly in the apparently unoccupied house. It was a large 3-story stone building containing some 16 rooms. While the front of the house was a garden, the whole was intended to fill the requirements of a gentleman's family. Although my mother repeatedly offered the premises rent-free to anyone who would be courageous enough to live there, so great was the dread of ghosts. Okay, so he goes on to describe the memory of little rabbits that were kept in the garden of that house that had been given to him by an old man called Luke the laborer, quote unquote. And he and Luke would visit the pens and feed the rabbits where they were kept. But despite the lavished love that was put upon them, they died one by one. After that, he rarely visited the house, and eventually Luke the laborer died as well.
Jeez.
So then he goes on to say, my mother was unable to sell or rent the house, but was still required to pay taxes, and it became a great financial burden. And so one day when I was 11, my mother poured her tale of woe into my ear, explaining that strong and brave men refused to enter the house. At least a dozen different men tried to sleep there, but one night invariably proved enough for them, after which experiences, horses couldn't drag them there to undergo another season of such distressing phenomena as presented to themselves during their nocturnal watch. Do you understand?
Dang.
Basically,
Yeah.
a bunch of men tried to sleep there. Something
Strong,
happened.
brave men could not even stay.
You couldn't drag them back. They were not up for it. So she was paying taxes on this place. She couldn't sell it. She couldn't lease it. She was forced to pay taxes on this house that she couldn't get rid of, basically. So whichever part of the house the men occupied, it made no difference, for the voices occurring in the other rooms were so great that sleep was out of the question. Knocking and noises like scrubbing overhead, voices of male and females, holding conversations, mocking laughter, weird lights, ringing of bells, and to cap the climax, an old tottering, palsied woman would pass through the various rooms, muttering and mumbling incoherent sentences. An apparition plainly visible but impalpable as the air we breathe. This apparition was seen not by one, but by 100 persons. And for aught I know, the same old woman continues her visits to the house to the present time. And so that's how it came to be that my mother asked me to go to the house and find the source of the scrubbing sound that was day and night, but to which no source could be attributed.
I'm so into this. This is incredible. No wonder they had to print this in the newspaper.
I took the key of the front door and went over and boldly entered the house. It was about 11 o'clock in the morning, and to my surprise, the door was unlocked. I threw the door wide open and started down the hallway. I'd advanced but a few steps when the door closed with a crash. I ran back to open it again, but found it locked. But I was determined to see the ghost for myself. In my excitement, I paused at the top of the stairs to decide which room I should enter first. Directly opposite was a door leading into a large room, and I decided to start in my exploration there. No sooner had the impulse seized me to open the door that I heard the scrubbing noise. I hesitated a moment and then knocked and asked to be admitted. There was no answer, but the scrubbing stopped. I threw open the door. In the center of the room appeared a servant, a woman scrubbing in the usual manner. I asked her the reason she troubled the house, and she replied, "Oh, sir, deliver me from her. I'm bound to her forever, and she keeps me scrubbing day and night." To whom are you bound?" I asked. To her, she cried, pointing to some person apparently behind me. I turned quickly and saw an old tottering woman standing between me and the head of the stairs. I turned again to look at the servant, but she had disappeared, and turning again, the old woman was gone. The floor where the servant had been scrubbing had not been touched with water, although when I first entered, the place appeared very wet. At this moment, there was a scuffle overhead, and orders to again begin scrubbing was given. I started upstairs when the old woman again appeared. She appeared almost transparent. I could discern objects through and directly behind her. Knowing her to be a spirit, I adjourned her to the usual way of addressing visitants. "In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost, why troubles thou this house?" "How dare you address me thus?" demanded the old woman. I said it again and asked her why she persisted in haunting the building. The apparition became incensed and rushed at me, passing through me. So potent was the attack that I felt I would suffocate if I did not get a breath of fresh air. A tussle ensued, and I became crazed with fright and fight. For a time, I apparently fought my psychological combatant with a rapier, but so fast as I vanquished the spirit, so would it appear in a different form and renew the attack. I finally reached the door and rushed out when the spirit with whom I had given battle became transformed into the pet rabbits which had died and which I had almost forgotten. I knew immediately that the old woman was in the rabbits, and I made for them, not willing to lose them again. Even then, I stumbled and fell heavily several times, but eventually succeeded in capturing 3 of the conies. Oh no, I think that must mean rabbit. And started home with the struggling animals. One of the little fellows was changing colors as I held him tightly, but unlike okay. So the way this bit is written is a little confusing. What I'm understanding.
He's telling some details about the rabbit.
Yeah. Okay. So like all of a sudden it seems like the ghost has transformed into rabbits, the rabbits that he used to own. And although he knows it's the spirit of the woman, he wants his rabbits. Help it. And so he scoops up his little rabbits and takes off booking. One of them is changing colors in his arms as he is running. But unlike an ordinary rabbit, it tried to get away most desperately and kept begging me all the time to have mercy on him. So I don't know. I mean, no rabbit I've ever caught wants to be held. So, but I think it might have been talking. I'm not really clear. I wish I could ask him questions, but he is over 150 years old at this point or something. Okay. When I reached home, I turned him loose, but to my great disgust, it assumed the shape of the old woman who, with a fiendish grin, waved her hand and disappeared. I am now convinced that it was the spirit of Satan I held battle with, and I believe here the story ends abruptly in the middle of the page.
No!
Across the portion of which a heavy pencil mark is described as if someone had struck the writer's elbow a sudden blow. It may be that as the old man wrote, the figure of the wretched, palsied woman appeared before him and put an end to the narrative.
Holy shit! Oh my God! That's wins. That wins. That's so good. Oh my God, it's so good. I love everything about it. The imagery. Absolutely, he took the palsied woman rabbit out of that house and now she's haunting him. Yes. Absolutely.
That's
whether it's Satan or not, I don't know, but he is haunted as fuck.
Oh yeah, and it was like, don't kill. I think the rabbit was talking. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. That was a little hard to decipher.
I mean, if it's a demon possessed woman in a rabbit,
don't have mercy on have mercy on me, because she's like, get me in your house as soon as I'm in there.
Oh my God. And she's like, what?
You're mine for life.
How can I get out of this house? What form can I take that will remove me from this house? A beautiful color changing bunny rabbit.
Oh my God. Yes, exactly. So she'd been watching
What child
him.
can resist a fuzzy, delightful bunny rabbit?
No, and they were his bunnies. Like I said, he went on and on about the bunnies and how much he loved the bunnies and like how sad he was. And then, Luke the laborer took care of the bunnies, and then Luke the laborer also died. I want to go find this house. I do, but I don't. But I like kind of. I mean, there's not enough details.
This took place in England, though, right?
There actually could be enough details, honestly, because his name was Thomas Beer, and he lived in this bourne of Devonshire, England.
Devonshire. Ooh, we got some sleuthing to do.
And we have an 8 because we know he was 50 in 1894, and then his dad died when he was 10. So
we've got some information.
Actually, we could find this house. I mean, it sounds like a gorgeous old house. Like it sounds
18 bedrooms or something, right?
Huge. And he went in the middle of the day and got all the ghosts and haunting. He didn't even have to spend the night.
Well, and we know that the palsied tottering woman isn't there anymore. Like,
right?
she's in Washington with you.
Is she, or is it like an omnipresent spirit? The more people she can infect, she just has to have like a little bit of a portal and she can
Is that
appear
a
to anyone.
thing? Oh, God.
I don't know. Sure.
Oh, the scrubbing. And she's like, please make it stop. I don't want to scrub anymore.
Fine for eternity.
Scrub. Oh, God. Nightmare.
I mean, she must have lived. I mean, I guess you could almost probably go back if we find this property. I wonder how far back property records go. Like, you could almost maybe find the woman who used to live there who's haunting the property.
I mean, they are pretty good record keepers, I think, over in England.
I think. I don't know. I'm going to assume so. Sure.
Record keepers.
Yeah.
Wow. Alissa. Ooh. Bring in it. That's so good. I love it.
And I guess it was from the Seattle Star, I think, is where I found that back. Was where that title was plucked
that was
from.
Written so beautifully that I felt like I was in a movie. Like, it could have been a movie, the way it starts in the insane asylum and how it's like you're transported back into time. Oh my God, it's beautiful.
Do you have another story?
I do. This story comes from Jess. They say, in March of 2012, my now husband and I were returning from a family friend's wedding. It was late evening, dark outside, around 8 p.m. We were happily chatting about the weekend we'd just had and our plans after we returned home, with the radio quietly playing on in the background. We crossed the bridge and blinked. Suddenly, there was a different car in front of us. The radio was off, and we were on the wrong side of the bridge, approaching it to be crossed again. When we turned the radio back on to break our now terrified and confused silence, 30 minutes had elapsed in a time that felt like only seconds to us. We didn't know what to do other than just continue on. As we neared the town we were living in at the time, the car died. The brand new car battery had been replaced less than 6 months before, and it was completely fried. An acrid smoking smell emitted from it. To this day, we have no idea what happened, and ever since, we avoid that bridge during the night.
Ooh, I like that.
And it happened to both of them as they're crossing the bridge.
Like, if they were heading east over the bridge, were they all of a sudden find themselves heading west on the other side of the bridge? Or it was like they crossed the bridge,
approaching it to be crossed again. Oh, so it almost seems like they were like,
rewind.
They had crossed the bridge. Yeah, it was like rewound, and they were like back again, approaching the bridge again.
What bridge is this? I wonder if there's lore to the bridge. Dang. I mean, aliens, obviously. Or is it what about Columbia Claude, the crab or whatever?
Columbia Claude.
He grabbed him, took him on a space-time adventure that they don't remember.
I guess it's just called... Oh, no, here it is. Also known as the Cable Bridge, officially called the Ed Hendler Bridge, and sometimes called the Intercity Bridge, spans the Columbia River between Pasco and Kennewick.
Ed Hendler, do you think he was an astrophysicist?
Ooh, and he put some kind of like magnetic device that fucks with time? Huh?
Yeah, maybe. That could be it. I'm going to go with UFOs. Like, that sounds like classic UFO. And they needed a Honda Acura battery to get their bridge, their UFO going again. And
the power was drained.
Unlucky son of a guns.
I love it. I am happy, though, that it did kind of go with the Washington theme that we're going and cannot seem to get out of Washington. There's just a lot of hauntings there, I guess.
I don't know like why all of a sudden you moved up here and you're just like, we're doing it. I don't know why we've been so highly focused on Washington lately. I just told a story about England though, but it kind of took place in Washington. But it was an England story. It wasn't completely.
The asylum was in Washington.
Okay, so I have a quick one that is a near-death experience that happened in California. So we'll dig our way out. And I think it actually involves Texas as well, Britt.
Oh, brilliant.
I was out to dinner and I barely knew this person. And I heard a story that he began to tell. Someone mentioned, oh, when you almost died.
Alyssa's ears are like, bing! Hello.
And I was like, did you see Jesus? And I'm like, he's like, what? Maybe I shouldn't say see Jesus because a lot of people don't believe in Jesus, but you know, did you see anything? And he's like, I did have an experience. So he was living in California, bought, I believe it was a vehicle out in Texas that he had to go fly to Texas to get this vehicle to drive back home. So he went, he did it. The transaction was seamless. He, maybe a couple of days later, started feeling kind of gross and feeling pretty sick and icky, and was in the bathroom and like was barfing and passed out in the bathroom. And I think his sister-in-law ended up taking him to the hospital. They're like, he's having a really bad migraine. You know, that's it. They tried to discharge him. His brother's like, no, this is not what happens with his migraines. This is not that. This is something else. This is definitely something else. So the brother forces the hospital to keep him because they were going to discharge him. I think 10 minutes later, he flatlines and they end up bringing him back to life. They end up admitting him, but he's got all this shit going on with him to the point where they basically are like, he has like a 0% chance of living. And they bring in almost a Dr. House sort of guy, like doctor to like just do.
No, from the TV show.
To the TV
I was very
show.
confused. I was like,
Sorry.
what's a Doctor House?
A Dr. House.
Okay.
Where
that makes
like,
sense.
they're just like throw anything at him. If you can save him, great. But we're expecting him to die. So like he becomes sort of a guinea pig on like just trying to save him. So he had an experience where he was out of his body and he is in a room and he's looking at 3 beds, and there's him in the middle bed, his body where he was unconscious in the middle bed, and then a version of himself to the right and a version of himself to the left. So I'm pretty sure the way I pictured it and the way he told it was like he was unconscious in one of the beds, but the 2 on the other sides were awake. And one was saying, hey, this can be all over. Let's just be peaceful and happy and just like, come on, let's go to the other side. Let's leave all this behind. You've done a lot with your life. You know, let's just go. We can make this pain end. Okay. Let's just be done with it. The other one on the other bed was saying, hey man, you still have a lot of living to do. Like, what about your family? What about your friends? What about this lady you just met? All of this. And basically in that moment, he had to make a choice between which
the blue pill or the red pill.
Oh, and wow. he's like, realize now that like the one on the right that wanted me to leave, that was like my pain. That was the manifestation of the pain I was in because he was in a lot of pain. And then the one on the left was his like conscious mind and his like soul and spirit that wanted him to, you know, stay and experience life. And so in that moment, he had to make this decision and he decided he was going to stay. And then all of a sudden, back in his body, right? He ended up living, obviously, because he told me the story. Long story short, he had spinal meningitis, or he had meningitis, bacterial meningitis. He was like this freaking miracle child that like survived this experience. He's in the hospital longer because it's not just an instant recovery or anything. And one day, this man with a briefcase and a suit came into the hospital room and started kind of asking him questions about this car he picked up in Texas and this and that. And long story short, this guy was from the CDC, and apparently someone on that flight down to Texas had bacterial meningitis or some sort of meningitis, and an astounding number of people on that plane also developed meningitis and were in the hospital. And I want to say like 3 or 4, or like a number of them had actually died by that point.
Holy shit.
I did not know that could happen from an airplane.
Neither.
So there you go, everyone. We'll leave you with a good old case of the old neuroses.
Who has a flight today?
Right?
Who's listening to this on the airplane?
I know. So if that doesn't give you a case of the wicked shimmies, I don't know
nice
what does.
back.
But so many of these are like, you have a choice. You have a choice. Do you want to go or do you want to stay? And whenever I hear these near-death experiences, I'm wondering who is the one who's like, I want to go. I'm done. Get me out of here.
The one who is not alive to answer that question for you.
Okay.
But they die.
Hypothetically, the people who died made that choice because so many of these people are in these situations where, like, some people are like, I regretted that decision. For the first year I was back, I regretted my choice because it was so
the
hard.
Pain, the recovery. Yes.
But now that I'm back, because they're like, this will be the hardest thing you've ever done in your life. You're going to stay, you're going to live, but this is going to be the hardest thing you've ever done in your life. And they choose to stay.
What happens in cases where the CDC finds like patient 0, the original person who's on the plane, and then they discover all of these, like, what was he just gathering information, or like, what do they do with that?
I think so. I mean, I think that they have a responsibility to track, and then who were you in contact with since then?
Like, did he also spread it to other people, kind of?
I think
situation?
There has to be that contact tracing. But don't fuck around with that. It'll give you a near-death experience.
I was wondering when you were telling this story, I was like, why did she mention the car? That's thing to do with the hospital. But
So even the way he came back to it, I thought, oh, wait, there's something up with the car. It's something with the car gave this to him. But no, it was the flight to get the car. So there's that little near-death experience to wrap this all up with a happy little ending.
Beautiful little bow.
Hey, if you have stories that you would like to tell us, you totally should. And you can send them into skeletalespodcast@gmail.com, or you can call the hotline.
302-689-DEAD, 302-689-3323. We are on all of the socials. You can message us over there or just join in the conversation, post some stuff, look at our posts. I've been trying to post up some fun merch. I made some buttons this week. Don't know if you saw those, Alissa.
I did. I love them. I think they're so cute. I'm obsessed.
I might send you one for your bag. You can get your merch at skeletalespodcast.etsy.com. We've got lots of goodies over there.
Heck yeah. You can also rate, review, share with a friend, do the things. All that helps the podcast. Anything else, Britt?
No.
Oh, wait. What's that out the window? Oh, shit.
What is it? Out the window? What is that out there?
I think it's I'll haunt you later.
You're so good. Good night.
Good night.